Imagine waking up thinking it's an ordinary day, and within hours, your best friend tells you he's an alien. Your house is destroyed. Your planet is seconds away from exploding, and the only safe place left is a stolen spaceship somewhere in the galaxy. Life doesn't warn you before it changes sometimes. It just throws you into the universe. Arthur Dent never wanted an adventure. He only wanted his small house, his morning tea, and a quiet life in a peaceful English village. But the universe had other plans. On a normal Thursday morning, Arthur discovers that his home is about to be demolished. At the same time, his best friend, Ford Prefect, reveals an unbelievable truth. He is not human. He is an alien researcher working for a strange, famous guidebook called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Before Arthur can even process the shock, the Earth is destroyed by a giant, Vogan spaceship. In a single moment, everything familiar, every memory, every place, every person is gone. Arthur is forced into space with Ford, holding on to nothing except confusion and fear. But this is only the beginning. The galaxy is huge, wild, and full of creatures who don't care about rules. From two-headed presidents to depressed robots. From impossible travel routes to bizarre cosmic jokes, the universe is unpredictable. And Arthur must learn, quickly, that surviving the galaxy requires one golden rule. Support the channel by subscribing, liking the video, and leaving your valuable suggestions in the comments. And remember to press the bell icon to stay inspired. Chapter 1. The Day the World Ended. Asterisk Arthur Dent always believed that life should stay simple. A quiet morning, a cup of tea, and the comfortable feeling that nothing unexpected would happen that was enough for him. He had never wanted danger, adventure, or anything that felt too large to understand. But life rarely asks for permission before it changes, and on that unforgettable Thursday morning, everything began to fall apart faster than Arthur could blink. He stood outside his small house in rural England, wearing his bathrobe, confused and irritated. In front of him stood a group of men with bright yellow machines and an unfriendly attitude. The council had decided to demolish his house to build a bypass, and Arthur was the only thing standing between his home and total destruction. He lay down in the mud, determined to stop them, even though he wasn't entirely sure how long he could resist. His house wasn't fancy. His life wasn't extraordinary, but it was his, and he wasn't ready to let it go. While he struggled with this earthly disaster, another disaster much bigger, much stranger, and far more dangerous was already on its way. Right then, his friend Ford Prefect arrived, looking unusually serious. Ford was not like other people. He had a strange charm, an odd way of speaking, and a habit of disappearing for long periods without explanation. But even for Ford, this morning felt different. He walked up to Arthur, helped him sit up from the mud, and said something so ridiculous that it almost sounded like a cruel joke. "Arthur, we need to talk. Urgently. The world is about to end." Arthur blinked, still trying to protect his house and understand why his friend looked like he had swallowed fear and panic. Ford pulled him aside and tried to explain something impossible. He wasn't from Earth at all. He was an alien researcher for a strange electronic book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a guide meant to help travelers survive the vast, dangerous, and frequently unbelievable universe. Arthur tried to laugh, but the humor died in his throat when he saw the sky. A gigantic metal ship called gray and impossibly large hung above them like a warning from the universe itself. Within moments, a harsh voice echoed across the planet, speaking in a tone that sounded both official and uncaring. The Vogons, a bureaucratic alien species with a passion for destruction and terrible poetry, announced that Earth was being demolished to build a hyperspace bypass. Humans had been notified, although nobody alive could remember receiving any warning. The irony was dark. Arthur had fought all morning to save his tiny house from destruction, and now the whole planet was about to be blown away for the same reason, a bypass. Ford grabbed Arthur's arm. "We have one chance. We need to hitch a ride on that ship." Arthur, still dizzy and terrified, didn't know how to respond, but Ford acted quickly. He guided Arthur through chaos, ignored screams, and used a secret interstellar Tulasebetha, signaled to attract the attention of a passing Vogan ship. Moments before the Earth exploded in a blinding flash of light, Ford managed to smuggle both of them aboard. Everything Arthur had ever known is home. His memories, his planet vanished in seconds. The world ended, and he didn't even have time to say goodbye. Inside the Vogan ship, darkness surrounded them. Arthur felt weightless, breathless, and hopeless all at once. The smell of the ship was unpleasant, almost poisonous. The hallways were narrow, colorless, and cold. He struggled to understand what was happening, but Ford tried to keep him steady. "I'm sorry, Arthur," Ford whispered. "I should have told you earlier." But there was no time. Arthur wanted to be angry. He wanted to scream or cry. But shock made him silent. His mind struggled to hold on to anything familiar. It felt as if he had been pushed into a nightmare he could not wake up from. Ford explained that hitchhiking through space was normal for travelers like him. It was risky, unpredictable, and sometimes terrifying, but it was a way to survive. Now Arthur was one of those travelers, even if he never asked to be. Arthur listened, but the words didn't fully settle in. His chest felt tight, and he kept thinking about the Earth's his house, the sky, the sound of birds, the smell of fresh rain. He didn't know what hurt more, losing everyone he loved, or realizing that he had no control over anything anymore. When the Vogans discovered them aboard the ship, things went from bad to worse. Vogans hated hitchhikers. They hated almost everything, especially anyone who tried to be hopeful. Arthur and Ford were dragged in front of the Vogan captain, a creature whose face looked like a mistake of evolution, wrinkled, swollen, and constantly irritated. The captain read them some Vogan poetry as punishment. Vogan poetry was famously awful, so awful that hearing it felt like physical suffering. Arthur clutched his ears, trying not to faint, while Ford tried to stay brave, but failed miserably. After torturing them with poetry, the captain ordered them to be thrown out of the airlock. Arthur froze. Thrown out into space? Ford nodded. It'll be quick, maybe too quick. As the guards pushed them toward the airlock, Arthur realized that life had abandoned all logic. This morning, he had been fighting a bulldozer. Now he was about to be thrown into the endless vacuum of space because of a species that enjoyed both destruction and poetry. Just before they were pushed out, Ford grabbed Arthur's arm and whispered, "Don't panic." The door opened. Silence rushed in. The cold touch of space wrapped around them. And then, against all probability, against every known rule of survival, something impossible happened. A ship picked them up. Not just any ship. A remarkable, legendary, utterly unpredictable ship called the Heart of Gold, powered by an infinite improbability drive. On this ship traveled Zaphod Beeblebrookes, the two-headed president of the galaxy, Trillion, the only other surviving human, and Marvin, a depressed robot with the brain the size of a planet. Arthur felt the weight of everything crashing down: fear, confusion, loneliness, and shock. He had survived the destruction of Earth, only to be thrown into a universe he didn't understand. But one truth connected everything. His old life was gone, and a strange new journey had begun. Chapter 2. The Ship of Impossibilities Arthur Dent had never imagined that survival itself could feel confusing. He had escaped Earth's destruction, endured Vogan poetry, and drifted through the deadly silence of open space, yet nothing was as overwhelming as waking up inside the Heart of Gold. A ship that behaved as if the laws of physics were optional suggestions. The ship's bright white corridors gleamed with a strange, almost playful energy. Every surface hummed gently, as if the metal itself was alive. It was beautiful, strange, and intimidating all at once. Arthur followed Ford Prefect through the hallway, still shivering from the memory of nearly dying. His mind was trying to catch up with everything that had happened. Losing his planet, losing everyone he had ever known, finding out his best friend wasn't human, hitchhiking across the galaxy. Nothing made sense anymore. Ford tried to explain the ship in simple terms, but the truth was too bizarre for easy English. "It's powered by an infinite improbability drive," he said, as if that clarified anything. "Basically, when you switch it on, It passes through every possible point in the universe, simultaneously. Arthur blinked. That's not basically anything. Ford shrugged. Well, it works most of the time. Before Arthur could protest, the corridor doors slid open automatically, revealing a large control room that looked like someone had mixed advanced technology with a child's imagination. Strange glowing panels floated in the air. Buttons shifted shapes. Screens displayed languages Arthur had never seen, spinning like cosmic poetry. And at the center stood the ship's most unusual passenger, Sapardi, the president of the galaxy, a two-headed, three-armed whirlwind of chaotic confidence. Zaphod grinned wildly, both faces grinning at different angles. "So these are the hitchhikers," he announced, his voice loud and proud. "Welcome aboard my magnificent ship. Try not to break anything, especially the parts that keep us alive." Arthur started. Ford looked embarrassed. Zaphod looked delighted. Arthur tried to speak politely. "Thank you for saving us." One of Zaphod's heads shrugged. The other nodded enthusiastically. "Don't mention it." "Actually, do mention it. I enjoy praise." Before Arthur could respond, someone else entered the room, someone far more calming. Trillian. She was the only other human left in the universe. Although Arthur didn't recognize her at first, she moved with gentle confidence, offering a soft smile as if she understood how disoriented Arthur felt. "I heard there were new passengers," she said kindly. "I'm Trillian." Something about her voice made Arthur feel slightly safer. Just slightly. She guided him toward a seat while the ship hummed, adjusting its course. Arthur looked at her carefully. "You're human." "Like me." Trillian nodded. "Yes. Well, originally. Long story. You'll get used to long stories out here." Arthur didn't know if he would get used to anything. Trillian noticed his expression and tried to comfort him. "It's a lot, I know, but the universe isn't as frightening as it feels today. Sometimes it's even wonderful." Arthur wanted to believe her irreality, but before he could respond, a deep, gloomy voice echoed through the room, a voice so tired that it sounded like exhaustion had been woven into every syllable. Marvin, the depressed robot, trudged in slowly. His metal body reflected the lights weakly, as if even the shine had given up on life. "I'm here," he said sadly. "Not that anyone cares. My existence continues meaninglessly." Arthur stared at him, unsure whether to laugh or feel sorry. Ford sighed. "Marvin, could you at least pretend to be cheerful?" Marvin's eyes dimmed. "I have a brain the size of a planet, and they ask me to pretend." Zaphod groaned. "Ignore him. He's been like this ever since he realized he has emotions." Marvin replied, "I didn't realize. They were installed without my consent." Arthur looked around. This ship was madness. Genius, but madness. And somehow, this was now his life. For a moment, silence settled over the room. The ship moved smoothly through space, gliding on waves of Arthur watched stars drift by through the observation window, giant burning suns, nebula clouds, distant planets. He had never imagined the universe was so enormous, so beautiful, so terrifying. Everything he knew was gone. Everything ahead was unknown. Ford placed a reassuring hand on Arthur's shoulder. "You'll learn. The guide will help." He handed Arthur a small electronic book. It looked ordinary, but when Arthur opened it, glowing letters appeared. "Don't panic." Arthur sighed. Too late. The screen shifted and displayed definitions, information, warnings, jokes, everything a traveler might need, written in a strange mix of wisdom and absurdity. As Arthur explored it, he realized something unexpected. Space wasn't just dangerous, it was confusing, unpredictable, sometimes hilarious. A small spark of curiosity awakened in him. Maybe survival wasn't the only reason he was still alive. Maybe there was something he was meant to understand. But before that thought could settle, alarms echoed through the ship. The lights flickered. Panels began shifting rapidly. Zaphod shouted, "We have company!" The ship jolted violently, making Arthur cling to his seat. "What's happening?" he yelled. Ford scanned the monitors. "We're caught in a probability wave. Something improbable is heading straight toward us." Arthur felt a pit in his stomach. Improbable. Like what? A blinding flash of light filled the room. Everything vibrated, shaking like reality was bending. The walls rippled, the floor twisted, and Arthur felt like his body was made of rubber bands. In one impossible moment, the ship passed through a dozen realities. A whale suddenly appeared midair, questioned its existence, and vanished. A bowl of petunias materialized, sighed, and disappeared. Arthur screamed. Ford laughed nervously. Trillian held onto the controls. Zaphod shouted orders to no one in particular. Marvin muttered, "I knew this would happen. I always know." When the ship finally stabilized, Arthur collapsed into his seat, breathing hard. His heart pounded, his head spun. His mind begged for normal, simple, boring life. But normal was gone forever. Trillian placed a comforting hand on his arm. "You're doing better than you think. The universe isn't gentle, but it has a strange way of showing you things you never imagined." Arthur looked at her, exhausted but listening. "I don't understand any of this." "You don't need to not yet," she replied softly. "Just stay awake. Learn. Feel. Survive." For the first time since the Earth exploded, Arthur felt something that surprised him. Not hope, not excitement, but acceptance. Maybe Adi then T choose this journey. Maybe it wasn't fair, but he was here. Alive. And the universe was opening its gates before him. Zaphod clapped loudly, breaking the moment. "All right, team. Let's try not to die today." Marvin Saged, a pointless goal. Ford laughed. "Welcome to space, Arthur." Arthur exhaled slowly, looking at the endless galaxy outside the window. For the first time, he didn't panic. He simply breathed whatever waited ahead: danger, chaos, heartbreak. Wonder he would face it, because survival was no longer enough. He was beginning a journey he never asked for, but maybe one he needed. Chapter 3. 1200 words. The Guide, the Galaxy, and the Questions That Never End. Asterisk. His mind was still spinning from everything: the destruction of Earth, the infinite improbability drive, the depressed robot, and the fact that he was now on a ship captained by a two-headed man who behaved like a walking disaster. The cabin he had slept in was small, but strangely comfortable. The lights adjusted automatically to his mood, glowing softly as if trying to comfort him. He tried to pretend everything was normal, but normal no longer existed for him. The universe had dragged him into a story he didn't understand, and it wasn't offering instructions. A soft knock came at the door. Before Arthur could answer, Ford Prefect barged in with the excited energy of someone who had absolutely no idea what calm meant. "Morning, Arthur!" he exclaimed. Arthur rubbed his face. "I was hoping for something simple." "Maybe a cup of tea?" Ford paused, looked genuinely sympathetic, then shook his head. "Tea doesn't exist out here." Arthur felt his heart sink. Losing his planet was one thing. Losing tea was cruelty. Ford handed him the Hitchhiker's Guide again. Arthur tapped the screen, and the words "Don't panic" glowed gently. "You keep saying that," Arthur said, "but it keeps getting harder not to panic." Ford grinned. "Good. That means you're adjusting R2 to red." "That makes no sense." "Exactly," Ford replied. "That's why you'll fit right in." They walked down the corridors, passing doors that opened and closed on their own. The ship hummed with energy, responding subtly to their presence. Arthur could feel it like the ship itself was watching, listening, waiting. In the control room, Zaphod Beeblebrox was arguing with Marvin, who stood motionless, radiating pure hopelessness. "I'm telling you," Zaphod shouted, "we're going to take a slight detour. Nothing dangerous, nothing too weird, just a small, illegal trip to find the legendary planet of Magrathea." Marvin sighed loudly, as if offended by the concept of adventure. "Magrathea doesn't want to be found. It doesn't even want to exist, much like me." Zaphod waved him off. "You're exaggerating." "I never exaggerate," Marvin replied. "Everything is always worse than it seems." Arthur walked in, hearing the argument. "Magrathea?" he asked. "What's that?" Ford raised an eyebrow. "Magrathea is, well, complicated." Trillian joined them quietly, typing something into a console. Magrathea used to be the most advanced planet in the galaxy. They built luxury worlds, custom planets for the richest beings. But then they vanished. No one's heard from them for millions of years. Arthur blinked. They built planets. Like the entire planet. Zaphod clapped his hands together excitedly. "And we're going to find them, because I have a feeling they're not as extinct as they pretend to be." Arthur stared at the group, trying to decide whether they were geniuses or lunatics. Possibly both. The ship suddenly changed direction. The stars outside blurred as the heart of gold accelerated, following Zaphod's reckless confidence toward a myth. Arthur grabbed the nearest chair. "Are we sure this is a good idea?" "Absolutely not," Ford replied cheerfully. "But it's interesting, isn't it?" Arthur groaned. Hours passed. Ford helped Arthur learn how to use the guide properly. It wasn't just an encyclopedia, it was sarcastic, emotional, often rude, and occasionally wise. Arthur read entries about planets, species, risks, foods, and cosmic warnings. The guide didn't comfort him, but it made him laugh, which felt like healing. He needed that more than he realized. "The guide is a friend," Ford said. "Sometimes annoying, sometimes brilliant, sometimes stupid, but a friend." Arthur nodded slowly. "That sounds like you." Ford winked. "Exactly." Meanwhile, Zaphod was busy typing frantically, bouncing between control panels. Trillian assisted calmly, adjusting the navigation while Zaphod made wild guesses. Marvin followed them around with the defeated posture of someone certain everything would end in tragedy. The ship drifted through the galaxy more smoothly than Arthur expected. He stared out at the stars, feeling something deep and strange inside him. He had lost everything but here. Among the stars, he felt a small flicker of wonder. Space was terrifying. Yes, but it was also beautiful colors, shapes, lights, distances too vast to comprehend. Arthur whispered to himself, "I wish Earth could have seen this." Trillian overheard. She walked up beside him. "Earth never got the chance to explore its own beauty properly. Your people were still too busy arguing." "We argued about everything," Arthur admitted. "TI, politics, television shows, parking spaces. Maybe the universe brought you here to see more than Earth ever allowed." Arthur didn't know how to respond. He just watched the stars with her, silent but comforted. Suddenly, the ship alarms beeped softly. Trillian leaned forward. "We're nearing the coordinates." Zaphod's right head grinned. His left head frowned suspiciously. "We should be careful," the left one said. "We should be extraordinary." The right one shouted. "We should be alive," Arthur added, nervously. The ship slowed. Through the wide observation window, a small gray planet appeared, quietly floating in the darkness like a forgotten memory. "Is that Magrathea?" Arthur whispered. Ford nodded slowly. "Looks like it might have been Sigel." "I told you, this was a terrible idea!" Zaphod rubbed his hands together. "All right, team. Once we land, we explore. But stay together. Magrathea is full of secrets." Arthur swallowed hard. "What kind of secrets?" "Oh, you know," Ford said casually. "Ancient engineering, mystery vaults, possibly traps." "Possibly," Arthur repeated. "Definitely," Marvin corrected in a miserable tone. "You'll see, everything always goes wrong." As the ship descended, Arthur felt his heartbeat accelerating. The planet was silent, lifeless, almost ghostly. But something about it felt heavy, like history was watching them. The engines hummed softly as the heart of gold touched down on a flat surface. The doors opened. A cold wind blew in, carrying the scent of dust and time. Arthur stepped forward slowly, his shoes crunching against ancient ground. The sky above was pale and empty. The landscape stretched endlessly silent valleys, metallic hills, carved tunnels that seemed to lead into the planet's heart. Ford whispered, "We're standing where the greatest builders in the galaxy once worked." Arthur felt it. The air carried a weight of forgotten marvels. Trillian scanned the ground. "There are energy readings. Something's active underground." Zaphod grinned wildly. "Exactly what I wanted." Arthur looked at him. "What are we looking for?" Zaphod shrugged. "I don't know. But we'll know when we find it," Marvin muttered behind them. "Or it will kill us. That's also likely." They walked toward a massive door carved into the rock, a door that looked older than memory itself. The ground vibrated slightly as they approached. Arthur felt a strange pull, like the planet was inviting them inside. Ford placed a hand on his shoulder. "Stay close. Stay close. This place has rules we don't understand." Arthur nodded silently. He didn't know what awaited them inside Magrathea. Danger? Answers. But he knew one thing. Whatever this planet held would change everything. His old life had ended with Earth. But his new life, his strange, confusing, extraordinary life, was only just beginning. Asterisk. Chapter 4. Into the Heart of Magrathea. Asterisk. The air inside Magrathea felt ancient, so ancient that Arthur wondered if he was breathing in history itself. The moment the great stone door slid open with a deep rumble, a cold rush of air swept past him. It smelled of metal, dust, and something else he couldn't quite name. Something like memory. The tunnel ahead was long, carved from smooth gray rock, stretching into darkness. Lights embedded in the walls flickered on one by one, guiding them deeper into the planet like a silent invitation or a warning. Arthur hesitated at the entrance. "But it's exciting, isn't it?" Arthur made a face. Excitement and fear feel very similar. Marvin sighed dramatically from the back. Zaphod clapped his hands loudly, ignoring Marvin. "Let's move. Adventure awaits. And possibly treasure. Or danger." Arthur appreciated her words more than he admitted. He took a deep breath and followed the group into the tunnel. The path sloped downward, curving gently as if carved with perfect precision. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the walls, patterns of stars, spirals, and geometric shapes that Arthur couldn't decipher. Ford traced his fingers over one symbol. These people were brilliant. They built entire worlds like an artist paints on canvas. Arthur nodded slowly. Why would anyone abandon all this? Ford's smile faded. Powerful civilizations rarely disappear for simple reasons. Something big happened here. Arthur didn't like the sound of that. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber filled with machinery so advanced it looked like magic. Clear tubes ran along the ceiling, glowing softly with flowing energy. Giant consoles sat silently, covered in crystal panels and metallic switches. Everything was clean, untouched, as if waiting. Arthur whispered, "It's like they left yesterday." Trillian examined one of the consoles. These systems are still alive. Sleeping, but alive. And here we go again with terrible decisions. Before Zaphod could press anything dangerous, a loud mechanical hum filled the chamber. Everyone froze. A smooth metallic cube rose from the floor, unfolding with soft clicks. It transformed into a floating projection device. Light burst upward, forming the hologram of an old man with calm eyes and a gentle smile. Arthur stepped back in surprise. "You have entered the great halls of Magrathea, creators of luxury planets. Please state your purpose." Zaphod pushed forward confidently. "We're here to explore, and also maybe discover something important, and possibly steal something shiny." Trillian elbowed him hard. "We're travelers seeking knowledge. You may proceed. But caution. The systems will awaken slowly. Magrathea is not accustomed to visitors." The hologram faded, and a large door at the back of the chamber slid open. They stepped into a long elevator shaft. A floating platform waited for them, humming gently. When they all climbed aboard, the platform descended with a smooth drop, carrying them deeper, far deeper into the core of the planet. Lights flicked past rapidly. Arthur stared over the edge, feeling dizzy. "How far down does this go?" Ford replied. "Magrathia's planet-building systems are massive. We're probably heading toward their control center," Marvin muttered. "Or the center of our doom." The platform finally stopped, and they stepped into a breathtaking sight. They stood in a gigantic underground cavern that stretched as far as Arthur could see. Suspended within it were half-built planets' miniature worlds, floating inside energy fields, slowly forming oceans, mountains, and atmospheres. Robotic arms moved carefully around them, sculpting continents with mathematical precision. It was like watching creation itself at work. Arthur's breath caught in his throat. "This is impossible," Ford whispered. "This is Magrathia's art." Trillian watched the glowing spheres with awe. They didn't just build planets. They designed dreams. As they walked beneath the floating worlds, Arthur felt overwhelmed. Here he was, an ordinary man from a demolished Earth, witnessing the incredible power of a long-lost civilization. He felt insignificant, tiny, and amazed all at once. For the first time since leaving Earth, Arthur felt something that wasn't fear, wonder. At the far end of the cavern stood a tall metal door. As they approached, it opened automatically. Inside was a quiet room filled with holographic screens, flickering gently. At the center stood an old man real, not a projection. He turned toward them, smiling kindly. "Welcome. I am Slatabarthask." Arthur blinked. Ford nearly shouted. "The Slatabartfast, the award-winning planet designer." The old man nodded proudly. "For Fjorth." Arthur froze. "On Earth?" "Yes." "Terrible business. Really." Arthur felt a strange mixture of sadness and amazement. Someone who helped create his world was standing right in front of him. Trillian asked gently, "Why did your people disappear?" The old man sighed. "We didn't disappear. We simply paused. The universe became unstable. Business slowed. We went into a long sleep. Now we wake again, slowly, carefully." He motioned them closer. "Come, there is something you must see." He led them into another room, filled with star maps. A massive hologram of the galaxy glowed in the air. Slatabartfast pointed to a bright cluster. "The universe is moving through a dangerous cycle. Old powers are returning. New forces are stirring. And something very important was hidden on Earth before its destruction." Arthur's heart tightened. "Hidden on Earth?" "Yes," the old man said. "Something ancient, something powerful, something many beings would kill to obtain." Arthur felt cold. "But Earth is gone." Slatabartfast shook his head calmly. "No," Ford whispered. "This is bigger than we expected." Zaphod grinned. "Bigger means more fun." Marin groaned louder than usual. "Bigger means more suffering. Please leave me out of this." Trillian looked at Arthur. "We might be involved in something we didn't choose." Arthur swallowed hard. "I didn't choose anything, but here I am." Slatabartfast stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You must all prepare yourselves. Magrathia will reveal what it knows, but the truth may be difficult." Arthur's heart thudded. He didn't know what was coming, but he felt it deep in his chest that his journey had just shifted into something far more dangerous, far more mysterious, and far more important. As the lights dimmed and the star map glowed brighter, Arthur realized something. His life was no longer about survival. It was about understanding why he was still alive at all. Chapter 5, The Ship That Should Not Exist. Arthur Dent had stopped trying to understand anything. Every time he tried to make sense of the universe responded by doing something even more ridiculous. Moments ago, he was being dragged through hyperspace corridors by Ford, and now he was standing inside a ship that looked like it was designed by someone who had no idea what a spaceship should look like, but wanted it to be polite. Everything was bright, friendly colors. The walls seemed to hum a cheerful tune. Even the doors swooshed open with what felt like a smile. "The heart of gold," Ford said proudly, tapping one of the smooth walls. "The most advanced ship ever created. Runs on the infinite improbability drive." Drive. Arthur tried to think about what that meant, but the thought hurt his brain. Instead, he stared at the glowing floor under his feet. "It feels like it's alive." Arthur opened his mouth to ask another question, but the door beside them slid open and enrolled the most miserable-looking robot in the entire history of robots. Tall, metallic, and sluggish. It moved like someone who had been ordered to attend a party against their will. Its eyes glowed with the kind of sadness that made Arthur feel guilty for existing. "Greetings," the robot said in a deep, hopeless voice. "I'm Marvin." "Not that it matters. Is he broken?" "No," Ford whispered. "This is just how he is." Marvin sighed so loudly that the walls seemed to droop. Ford shrugged and motioned for Arthur to walk. "Let's follow him before he gets even more depressed." As they walked through the ship, Arthur noticed something strange. Every room felt like it was welcoming him. The floor warmed under his feet. "So," Arthur said slowly, "this ship runs on improbability, as in unlikely things happen." Ford nodded. "Exactly. For example, when the drive was activated last time, it turned 2 missiles into a harmless bowl of petunias and a whale." Arthur stopped walking. "A whale?" "Yep. Right in the sky." "What happened to it?" Ford shrugged. "Gravity happened." Arthur decided it was safer not to ask follow-up questions. They reached the main control room. Standing there, looking like he owned the entire galaxy and possibly owed money to half of it, was Zaphod B. 2 heads, 3 arms, crooked grin. Chaos wrapped in charm. Zaphod turned both his heads toward Arthur with the enthusiasm of someone greeting a stranger they had already decided to annoy. "Well, well," Zaphod said. "If it ISNT, my cousin S, friend S, accidental hitchhiker." Ford coughed. "He's not your cousin." Zaphod waved a hand. "Metaphorical cousin? Everyone's a cousin if the universe is big enough." Arthur stared. "You kidnapped us." Zaphod placed a dramatic hand on his chest. "Kidnapped? My planet exploded. And now you're here. The safest unsafe ship ever made." Before Arthur could respond, a soft chime echoed across the room, followed by a gentle voice from the ceiling. "Improbability level stable. T synthesizer ready." Arthur perked up. "T." The console lit up with a cheerful glow. A small panel opened, and a steaming cup appeared. Arthur lifted it eagerly, but the very first sip made him almost gag. It tasted like something that wanted to be tea, but hadn't studied hard enough. "That's not tea," Arthur choked. The voice responded kindly. "I apologize. I have analyzed over 3 million human tea recipes, but all of them were statistically disappointing." Arthur set the cup down. "You're telling me?" Zaphod clapped his hands. "Enough tea drama. We have a mission." Ford raised an eyebrow. "Mission? You weren't supposed to steal this ship?" Zaphod scowled. "And now we're going to find something." Arthur crossed his arms. "Find what?" Zaphod grinned like someone revealing the punchline of a joke only he found funny. "The greatest secret in the universe. Arthur Seagate." "Why can't anything be simple?" "Because simple is boring," Zaphod replied. "Now, come on. Time to jump." "Jump?" Arthur repeated nervously. Ford squeezed Arthur's arm. "He means activate. The drive Arturgal pet." "I was afraid you meant that." Zaphod spun around to the main console, flipping switches with the confidence of someone who had no idea what any of them did but believed luck was on his side. The ship hummed. A low sound filled the room, like the universe clearing its throat. "Here we go," Zaphod announced dramatically. "Infinite improbability drive." On everything went wrong instantly. Arthur felt the world twist. The air shimmered. For a moment he was absolutely certain he had turned into a chair. Ford briefly became a cloud of butterflies. Zaphod's second head began reciting poetry. The ceiling melted into the floor and then snapped back. And then everything stopped. Arthur gasped for breath. What? What was that? Ford brushed imaginary butterflies off his shirt. Improbability jump. Arthur staggered. Are we supposed to survive that? Usually, Ford said. Marvin rolled in. You're all alive, he droned. How unfortunate! Zaphod slapped the console proudly. Success! We have arrived exactly wherever we were supposed to arrive. Arthur looked around. Nothing outside the viewport looked familiar. Stars swirled. Where are we? The ship answered softly. Location, improbable. Probability of explanation, low. Zaphod grinned. Just what I wanted. Arthur threw up his hands. Why would anyone want that? Zaphod's expression softened. Just for a moment, because the greatest things in the universe are always hiding where logic refuses to go. Arthur swallowed hard. For the first time since he left Earth, he felt something shift inside him. A quiet understanding. A small, frightening thought. He wasn't going home. Not the way he knew home. He was part of something now larger, stranger, unpredictable. And maybe, just maybe, he had to stop running from it. Ford patted his shoulder. Don't panic. We'll figure it out. Arthur nodded weakly. Right? Don't panic. But deep inside, he felt the truth. Panic was the most reasonable thing to feel right now. Chapter 6. A planet that refused to exist. Arthur Dent had finally accepted that the universe was not a place where things made sense. Logic was a polite suggestion, here not a rule. Still, when the heart of gold finished its improbable jump and the stars outside twisted back into normal shapes, Arthur felt a tiny spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, this time things wouldn't be too strange. That hope died instantly, because floating outside the viewport was a planet that looked like it was made of mist, light, and 1,000 unspoken secrets. Ford pressed his face against the glass. Please don't say that word. This planet shouldn't exist. Not in any database. Zaphod swaggered toward them. Arthur, estaré. Let me guess you don't know what it is, but you want to land on it. Zaphod snapped his fingers. It hides in improbable ones. Another meaningless planet full of meaningless danger. I can barely contain my excitement. Can robots be sarcastic? Ford sighed. The ship's voice, gentle as always, spoke. Warning. Planet has no gravitational signature. No stable surface. No detectable life forms. Probability of existence. 0.000000002%. Arthur blinked. Then how is it there? The ship answered politely. I do not know. Zaphod grinned. Beautiful. Let's go! Arthur stared at him, horrified. We're going to land on a planet that isn't supposed to exist. Zaphod placed a friendly hand on Arthur's shoulder. Achtung! 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 Real adventure doesn't wait for permission. Arthur inhaled sharply. With a humming sound, the ship drifted toward the strange, misty sphere. Instead of landing, something unusual happened. The planet opened. Not like a door, not like a gate more. Like a thought welcoming another thought. The mist parted, forming a swirling tunnel of shimmering blue light. Arthur grabbed the nearest handle. Is that safe? The ship answered calmly. Probably not. Zaphod grinned. Into the tunnel of mystery we go. And the heart of gold glided forward. The moment they entered, everything changed. The interior of the planet felt enormous, like stepping into a universe inside another universe. Colors shifted like living rainbows. Light pulsed like breathing. There was no ground, no sky, only shapes that appeared and vanished like memories. Arthur felt dizzy. What? What is this place? Arthur whispered. Ford's eyes sparkled. Some planets exist. Some planets live. I think this one remembers. Arthur frowned. Remembers what? Everything, Ford said softly. Before Arthur could respond, The shapes around them twisted into clear images. He gasped. London streets, trees from his backyard, the sound of rain on his old window. Then his house appeared perfect, whole, standing exactly as it was before the bulldozers came. Arthur felt his heart stop. "My house," he whispered. "It's really my house." Ford touched his shoulder gently. "It's not real, Arthur. It's the planet showing your memories." Arthur stepped closer. The door was the same color. The windows were the same shape. Even the old crack on the left brick wall was exactly where it should be. He reached out. His hand passed through the door like mist. Arthur swallowed hard. Why would it show me this?" Marvin's gloomy voice echoed behind him. "Because life is cruel and enjoys reminding you of things you will never have again." Arthur ignored him and turned to Ford. "Is it dangerous?" Ford shook his head. "I don't think so. This planet feels curious, like it wants to understand us." Zaphod, meanwhile, was talking to an illusion of himself wearing a crown. Yes. "I know. I'm fantastic." "No autographs," Arthur whispered. "Ford, if this planet shows memories, is it alive?" Ford hesitated. Arthur's house dissolved, replaced by fractal shapes that moved like thoughts. Then new images formed, not Arthur's memories, not Ford's, not Zaphod's. Something older, something deeper. A galaxy burning, a bright core pulsing at the heart of it all. Arthur stumbled back. "What is that?" Ford squinted. "I don't know, but it looks like a warning." The lights in the planet dimmed. The ship's voice spoke urgently. "Improbability levels rising. This environment is unstable." Zaphod snapped his fingers. "We woke it up." Marvin groaned. "Of course. Disturb an ancient planet Why not? It's not like the universe already hates us." The shapes began to move faster, swirling around them like a storm of thoughts. Some images were beautiful worlds, full of color and peace. Others were terrifying metal beasts, devouring light, strange creatures screaming silently, galaxies bending. Arthur's breath caught. "We have to leave." Ford nodded. "Agreed." Zaphod looked disappointed. Fine. But next time we bring souvenirs." They rushed back to the Heart of Gold. The swirling mist-tight tunnel began collapsing behind them, forcing the ship to speed up. "Hold on," the ship warned, activating emergency improbability burst. Arthur grabbed Ford. "What does that mean?" Ford grinned nervously. "We're about to do something extremely unlikely." The ship pulsed with light. Everything warped. For a moment, Arthur felt weightless, voiceless, thoughtless, like he existed between realities. The ship shot through the collapsing tunnel, burst out of the planet's mist, and reappeared in normal space with a violent jolt. Zaphod dusted off his jacket. Smooth landing. Arthur collapsed into a seat. "Zaphod, that planet showed us something. Something huge." Ford nodded. "Something old. Something powerful. Something dangerous." Marvin rolled in, sighing. "And we will probably be forced to chase that something, won't we?" Zaphod smiled. "Why? Because that planet wasn't just showing memories. It was sending us a message." Arthur swallowed hard. "A message about what?" Zaphod tapped the screen. A final image from the planet remained, a glowing core in the shape of a giant eye made of stars. Ford whispered that is the Central Mind. A legendary system at the center of the galaxy, Artur's. What does it want with us? Zaphod grinned. "We're going to find out." Arthur leaned back, heart racing. He knew one thing for sure. This adventure wasn't just chaos anymore. It had a direction, a purpose, and it terrified him more than anything else in the universe. Chapter 7. The central mind, Arthur Dent, sat stiffly in the control room of the Heart of Gold, staring out at the swirling stars. He had learned by now that space had no mercy, and neither did Zaphod B. The recent encounter with the living memory planet had left him exhausted, confused, and more than a little terrified. Ford Prefect leaned against the console, scrolling through the guide on his handheld device, muttering something about improbability thresholds and planetary consciousness. Marvin slouched nearby, eyes dim, muttering to himself about pointless existences and inevitable doom. Zaphod bounced between control panels, checking dials that seemed to appear and disappear at will, while Trillian calmly monitored navigation. The Heart of Gold hummed softly beneath them, almost as if it were aware of the tension, and responding in its own quiet, unpredictable way. "Where exactly are we heading now?" Arthur asked, voice tight. "To the central mind," Ford replied. "If that planet was a message, the mind is the sender," Arthur groaned. "I feel like I already failed the first rule of space travel. Never panic. I've panicked every day since Earth blew up." Zaphod grinned wildly. "Excellent. Then you're perfect for this adventure." Marvin muttered, "Boring would be preferable. At least, Borin wouldn't threaten my circuits with impending annihilation." The ship's voice chimed politely. "Probability of arrival, 99.98%. Estimated time, indeterminate." Arthur blinked. "Indeterminate. That's not helpful." As the Heart of Gold glided through hyperspace, stars elongated into streaks of light, and strange, impossible shapes flickered at the edge of perception. Arthur pressed himself against the wall, feeling nauseous from the improbable velocities. Trillian noticed and handed him a small stabilizing strap, showing calm competence that made him almost admire her composure. "You'll adjust," she said gently, "or you'll keep surviving without understanding anything. Either works." Hours or maybe days, time had lost meaning. Arthur struggled to keep track of reality. The guide tried to distract him with whimsical facts about improbable species and interstellar etiquette. Some entries were funny. All of them reminded him how insignificant humans were in the cosmic scale, and yet how strangely important his own tiny choices could become. Finally, the Heart of Gold approached a region of deep space unlike anything Arthur had seen. The stars bent in impossible curves, glowing with soft colors that shifted like living paint. The ship slowed as a massive structure appeared, a gigantic crystalline network, spinning slowly, light reflecting infinitely across its surfaces. It seemed alive, yet architectural, intelligent, yet mechanical. The central mind. Arthur's mouth fell open. "It's enormous. This is the heart of a system older than any civilization you've known." Zaphod spun in his chair. "And it's waiting for us. Or maybe it's annoyed. Either way, exciting." Marvin's voice dripped despair. "It's a giant, glowing death machine." The central mind pulsed gently, waves of consciousness radiating outward, touching the ship in ways Arthur could feel but not comprehend. The lights of the ship flickered and shifted in rhythm with the pulse. Arthur's chest tightened. "I can feel it," he whispered, thinking. "I love intelligent things. Let's go meet it. We don't even know if it wants to meet us." Zaphod waved dismissively. "That's the fun of adventure. One wrong move, and..." He trailed off, letting the universe imply the inevitable disaster. Marvin sighed. As the Heart of Gold entered the gravitational influence of the central mind, the walls of reality seemed to ripple. Space itself felt softer, more malleable, as though the central mind could bend it according to thought. Stars blinked in and out. Colors merged and separated like liquid light. Arthur felt his own thoughts, twisting. Images of Earth flashing briefly in his mind. Memories of tea, rain, and ordinary life that now seemed impossibly distant. Ford gripped his arm. "Don't panic," Arthur nodded, breathing rapidly. "Easier said than done." Suddenly, a voice not spoken, but directly inserted into their minds resonated. "Why have you come?" Arthur froze. Did that just speak to me?" Ford nodded. "Yes." mind to mind. Welcome to the central mind. It communicates differently. Zaphod leaned back with his trademark grin. Well, hello there. We're here to chat. Hope that's cool with you. The central mind pulsed in response. Curiosity? Survival? Chaos? Why do you seek knowledge? Arthur swallowed. I'm not sure. I didn't seek knowledge. I just survived. Survival, the mind echoed. Softer this time, almost thoughtful. Survival alone is not sufficient. Choices define existence. You carry remnants of a destroyed world. Arthur felt his heart ache. Earth's destruction had been senseless, yet here he was, part of something larger. It felt guilt, fear, and something unfamiliar. Responsibility. Trillian stepped forward. We're here because we followed a signal. From a living planet, it wanted to communicate. Communication. The mind's voice vibrated through their consciousness. All entities communicate in some form, but your kind is fragile, linear. You do not yet perceive the vast patterns. Ford whispered to Arthur. It's not angry, just assessing. Like a very big, very old teacher. Zaphod leaned toward the mind, waving one arm. We like teachers. Can we get a lesson? Or a tour? Or maybe a hint at some intergalactic treasure? Treasure. The mind pulsed in thought. Treasure is meaningless without understanding. Yet you seek it. Curiosity outweighs survival. You are unusual. Arthur felt dizzy. It's saying we're unusual. Ford nodded. Yes, that's good. Kind of. Marvin droned. Of course, we are unusual. All paths lead to unusual misery. The mind pulsed again. I will grant you knowledge, but first, you must witness the fragility of existence. You must understand the impermanence of worlds and thoughts. Arthur felt a chill. Witnessed what? The central mind's pulse intensified. The walls of space around them rippled, revealing visions of galaxies forming and collapsing, stars bursting and dying, planets dissolving into dust. The heart of gold floated in awe-inspiring chaos, yet remained stable, cradled in improbable safety. Arthur clutched the console. This, incredible and terrifying. Ford murmured, it's showing us the truth of everything, the scale of existence, and the scale of responsibility. Zaphod rubbed his hands together. Whoa! Epic. Absolutely epic. Marvin sighed. Epic misery. That's more like it. Arthur whispered, almost to himself. I understand. Survival isn't enough. We have to do more. We have to act. The central mind pulsed softly, like a smile. Then you are ready. Proceed. Observe. Learn. Choose wisely. Arthur felt a strange sense of calm amidst the chaos. Fear was still there. The unknown still loomed, but for the first time, he realized he was not merely surviving. He was beginning to understand. The heart of gold moved forward, guided by improbable currents, toward the heart of the mind. Arthur, for the first time since the Earth's destruction, felt purpose. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and dangerous, but it had given him a role, however small, and he would not waste it. Chapter 8. The Heart of Impossibility. The heart of gold drifted slowly away from the pulsating core of the central mind. Arthur Dent leaned against a console, feeling the ship's hum resonate through his chest. His mind was still buzzing with the visions of galaxies forming and collapsing, civilizations rising and falling, and the infinite threads of cause and effect the mind had shown him. He had survived improbable jumps, and conversations with two-headed maniacs, but this experience had changed something deep inside him. Survival alone was no longer enough. Awareness, responsibility, and choice mattered in ways he could feel but not fully explain. Ford Prefect floated past, scanning the guide. "You're quiet," he noted. "I'd say it's either a miracle or Yuri actually processing the enormity of everything." Arthur gave a small, exhausted smile. "I think I'm starting to understand that we matter, even when we feel insignificant, even when the universe seems indifferent." Zaphod Beeblebruce spun in his chair, both heads arguing with each other as usual. Yes, that's nice. But don't forget, the universe is fun too. Perspective, responsibility, fun they can coexist. Marvin droned from the corner. Coexistence is irrelevant. Suffering is inevitable. Fun is temporary. That is all. Trillian placed a reassuring hand on Arthur's shoulder. "You've come a long way, Arthur. You've faced fear, confusion, and chaos, and you've begun to see patterns where before there were only random forces. That's progress." Arthur nodded slowly. He gazed out at the stars stretching across space like living brushstrokes. The central mind pulsed faintly in the distance, a reminder of the universe's vast intelligence and the fragile beauty of existence. For a moment, he allowed himself a quiet sense of awe. He had seen the fragility of worlds, the impermanence of life, and the consequences of every choice. And yet, in the midst of it all, he felt something surprisingly human. Hope. Ford clapped him on the back. "Ready for the next improbable adventure?" Arthur laughed softly. "As ready as I'll ever be." Zaphod grinned. "That's the spirit. Onward into chaos and glory." Marvin muttered, "Glory is temporary. Misery is eternal." Arthur smiled faintly. "Then let's make the misery worthwhile." The heart of gold surged forward, improbable currents twisting and turning, carrying its passengers into the unknown. The stars glimmered like eyes watching, and the universe stretched endlessly before them. For Arthur Dent, life had shifted from mere survival to conscious navigation of a vast, bewildering, and beautiful cosmos. And as the ship disappeared into the heart of impossibility, he realized one undeniable truth. In a universe this immense and improbable, even ordinary beings could matter, and that knowledge was the most extraordinary discovery of all. The journey was far from over, but for now, in the quiet aftermath of wonder, Arthur felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Alive. Chapter 9. The edge of everything. The heart of gold hummed through the impossibly dark stretch of space that Arthur Dent had come to think of as the edge of everything. Out here, stars thinned into distant sparks, nebulae folded into impossible shapes, and time itself seemed hesitant, as if even the universe wasn't sure how it wanted to flow. Arthur leaned against a console, staring into the void, feeling the strange mix of awe and exhaustion that had been his constant companion since leaving Earth. He still couldn't fully understand the improbabilities they faced, but one thing was certain. The universe was far larger, stranger, and more intelligent than he had ever imagined. Ford Prefect floated by, scrolling furiously through the guide. The edge isn't really mapped, or observed, or supposed to exist, but apparently it does well, if you ignore all known physics, logic, and common sense. Arthur groaned. "I feel like I'm running a lifelong marathon in my brain." Zaphod Beeblebruce leaned against a control panel, adjusting switches with unthinking confidence. "Relax, Arthur. The edge is where the fun begins. All the weird stuff we've seen, that's just the trailer. The feature's about to start." Marvin muttered from the corner. "Fun, ha. Yes. That'll last approximately 1 minute before disappointment and cosmic despair set in." Trillian watched the stars carefully. "Whatever we find on the edge, it's intentional." Arthur swallowed hard. "That's easier said than done." The ship drifted forward, and the first anomaly appeared. A rift in space, like a tear in a delicate fabric, pulsing with colors that should not exist. Shapes flitted inside the rift, fleeting. Impossible forms that Arthur could only describe as half creatures, half each seemed to move with purpose. and yet there was no logic to their motion. Arthur's stomach twisted. Ford's eyes widened. It's like all potential realities briefly collide here before dispersing. Arthur whispered, "Where?" "In the middle of that?" "Alive." Zaphit's heads argued quietly. "Yes, alive. Also probably." The heart of gold hummed, gliding with improbable precision through the swirling currents of unstable reality. Arthur noticed that each improbable jump, each encounter with the edge, left subtle marks on the ship. Faint color shifts, new hums, slight distortions in gravity. The ship itself was alive in a new way, responding to the chaos around it, almost as if it were breathing. Suddenly, a massive shape emerged from the rift. A floating city, impossibly structured, twisting in 4 dimensions, glowing with lights that were simultaneously warm and alien. Towers spiraled into infinity, bridges looped in impossible geometries, and streets seemed to rearrange themselves as if the city were aware of their presence. Arthur swallowed hard. "It's alive," Ford whispered. "It's sentient, or at least semi-sentient. The central mind is showing us something here, an artifact, perhaps, or a civilization preserved in improbability." Zaphod grinned. "Artifact, civilization, whatever. Let's land and find out." Marvin droned, "Landing is impossible." "Of course. Go ahead anyway." Arthur clenched the console. The heart of gold descended slowly, its improbability drive allowing it to maneuver in ways no normal ship could. Gravity and spatial orientation bent unnaturally as they approached the city. Arthur felt weight shift under his feet, the walls of the ship stretching in impossible directions, yet somehow remaining solid. As they touched down on a shimmering platform, the city seemed to react. Lights brightened, shapes shifted, and a voice resonated not through the air, but directly in their minds. "Travelers, observers, survivors, welcome. Here, you must choose what you seek. How are we supposed to know? You feel it, or you fail. And failure isn't kind?" Zaphod laughed. "Sounds fun?" "I'm in," Marvin muttered. "I prefer to lie down and accept entropy." Trillian held Arthur's arm. "We'll figure it out together. Focus on what the mind wants to show us." The city shifted beneath their feet, revealing pathways that led in impossible directions, stairways looping into themselves, bridges curling through dimensions. Arthur noticed strange symbols etched into walls, probabilistic runes that seemed to change meaning if he looked too long. His mind felt stretched, as if reality itself was a rubber band being pulled in every direction. A light formed ahead, coalescing into a figure humanoid, yet impossibly elongated, its features constantly shifting. Arthur froze. "Who comes to the edge?" the figure asked, voice melodic, yet alien. "What do you seek in the place beyond existence?" Ford stepped forward cautiously. "We followed a signal from the central mind." Arthur swallowed. And maybe survive." The figure pulsed gently. "Understanding requires perception beyond survival. You have seen the fragility of worlds, the impermanence of existence, and the consequences of choices. Now, you must confront your own role in the patterns." Arthur felt a sudden weight on his chest, responsibility he had never fully grasped before. Confront your own role. He realized that survival wasn't just about avoiding danger. It was about action, choice, and awareness. "Well, that's convenient. I do those things naturally," Marvin groaned. "Natural doombringer." Arthur took a deep breath. We want to do the right thing, to understand, to act wisely." The figure pulsed brighter. "Then you may proceed. But beware. The edge tests all who arrive. What you seek may not be what you find, and what you find may change you forever." Arthur swallowed hard. He glanced at his companions. Zaphod grinning recklessly, Ford analyzing, Trillian calm and determined, and Marvin sulking in the corner. He realized that together they could face the impossible. The heart of gold lifted gently, carrying them along a twisting path through the city. Light, color, and sound swirled in impossible combinations. Arthur felt fear, awe, and determination merge into a strange, steady pulse. The edge of everything was not just a place, was a lesson, a test, and a revelation. And for the first time in a long while, Arthur felt a quiet certainty. He could meet the challenge, because understanding, he realized, was its own kind of survival. The city stretched infinitely ahead. Every choice, every movement, every improbable act would echo across realities. The heart of gold carried them onward, through the impossible, toward revelation, toward destiny, toward the next unimaginable encounter. Arthur Dent, ordinary human from a destroyed world, had become more than a survivor. He had become a participant in the patterns of the universe, and the universe was watching. Chapter 1:0. The improbable conclusion. The heart of gold drifted beyond the twisting spires of the Edge City, moving toward a space that felt both familiar and impossible. Arthur Dent sat in the control room, staring at the swirling stars, trying to process everything they had seen. Galaxies forming and collapsing, sentient planets, the central mind, and the edge of everything. It was overwhelming. And yet, despite the chaos, he felt a sense of purpose he had never known on Earth. Survival had turned into understanding. Confusion had transformed into curiosity. Fear had matured into cautious courage. Ford Prefect leaned over a console, flipping rapidly through improbability readings. Arthur, this is it. The moment where all the threads converge. Whatever we do now, every choice we've made matters. Every improbable survival, every hesitant step led to this point. Arthur swallowed hard. And if we fail? Zaphod Beeblebrox spun in his chair, his 3 arms gesturing wildly. Fail. Fail. That's boring! We don't fail, we adapt, improvise, and look fabulous while doing it. Marvin muttered. Adaptation is overrated. Doom is eternal. Fabulousness irrelevant. Trillian placed a calm hand on Arthur's shoulder. We don't fail because we've learned, Arthur. Every impossible choice, every moment of panic brought us here. We understand more than we realize. That's our strength. The heart of gold passed through a glowing corridor, lights bending and twisting around them. At the end of the corridor, the core of impossibility pulsed like a heartbeat, radiating waves of consciousness. The central mind's presence filled every corner of Arthur's mind, gentle but insistent. You have learned. You have observed. You have chosen. Now, act wisely. The universe depends on it. Arthur felt the weight of those words. Survival alone was not enough. Understanding alone was not enough. Action, responsibility, and insight were required. He realized that the universe was not just a place to endure, it was a place to participate, to shape, to influence. Zaphod grinned, seemingly sensing Arthur's transformation. Well, cousin of a friends, ready to do something truly spectacular? Arthur nodded, determination settling into his chest. Yes, we have to stabilize the core. The improbabilities, the chaos sits overwhelming, but we can guide it, influence it with awareness, and prevent collapse, Marvin droned, or we can fail spectacularly. That's always an option. Ford adjusted the improbability drive with careful precision. Arthur, the heart of gold is going to do the improbable, but it needs your focus. You've seen the patterns, the consequences. Now, apply them. Arthur took a deep breath. He reached out to the control slot to command them, but to cooperate, to influence the flow of improbability with intention. The core pulsed faster, responding to their combined awareness. Streams of probability twisted into harmony, chaos coalescing into structure. The central mind resonated in their minds. Observation becomes action. Chaos becomes order. Understanding becomes responsibility. You have learned, and now you act. Well done. Arthur felt a surge of exhilaration. Every galaxy, every collapsing star, every improbable entity they had encountered seemed to hum in agreement. The edge of everything, the city, the memory planets all converged into a single pattern, stable yet infinitely dynamic, Zaphod spun in triumph. See, that's what I call style, class, and cosmic influence, Marvin muttered gloomily. Style does not prevent doom, but yes, fine, temporary stability achieved. Trillian smiled at Arthur. You did it. You guided the chaos. You participated in the universe instead of merely surviving it. Arthur exhaled, a mixture of relief and awe. We really can make a difference, even in the smallest way, even as humans in this enormous, improbable universe. The heart of gold drifted away from the core, now stabilized, pulsating gently in rhythm with the flow of cosmic probabilities. Outside, stars stretched and bent, nebulae glowed with impossible colors, and the vastness of space seemed less frightening, more alive, more full of potential. Ford patted Arthur on the back. Congratulations, Earthman. You didn't just survive, you learned, adapted, and acted. That's rare. That's remarkable. Zaphod spun one last time, arms waving, and we looked awesome doing it. Marvin groaned. Awesome. How? Predictable. Arthur smiled faintly. I understand now. Chaos is not something to fear. It's something to navigate. Survival is instinct. Understanding is growth. And action is purpose. The ship's voice chimed softly. Course plotted. Probability stabilized. Next adventure awaits. All systems ready. Arthur felt a strange peace settle over him. The improbable universe, with all its unpredictability and danger, was not just a place to endure, it was a place to live, to learn, to explore, and to act. And for the first time since Earth had been destroyed, he felt ready for whatever came next. Ford leaned back with a grin. Ready for another improbable jump. Arthur nodded. Yes. I think I'm ready, Zaphod shouted joyfully, to the stars, to chaos, and to improbability. Adventure forever, Marvin muttered. Adventure is temporary. Misery is eternal. But yes, onward. And with a soft hum, the heart of gold surged forward, improbably weaving through the fabric of space, carrying its passengers into the unknown. The universe stretched infinitely around them, full of possibilities, dangers, wonders, and discoveries. And Arthur Dent, once a simple man from a small planet, had become more than a survivor. He had become a participant in the grand, improbable, infinite story of the cosmos. The journey would continue. The universe would challenge them again and again, but one truth remained. Amidst chaos and impossibility, awareness, courage, and action could make a difference. And in that improbable truth, there was hope. Arthur smiled. He was ready. The stars awaited. The adventure had only just begun. Enjoyed the video? Subscribe to our channel, heave it a like, share it with friends, and leave a comment. Don't forget to hit the bell icon for all updates.